It was a calm Saturday evening, and the living room was buzzing with light chatter and laughter. People had gathered to celebrate a small occasion. Nothing too fancy, just friends catching up after a long week. In the corner of the room stood a polished piano, its black and white keys gleaming under the soft glow of the chandelier. Everyone noticed it, but no one seemed particularly eager to play it, except for one person, a young woman with an aura of quiet confidence. She had always loved music. From a very young age, she could spend hours at a piano, lost in the melodies she created. Even though she had talent, she never made a show of it. She liked to keep her music private, something personal, a world where she felt safe. Tonight, however, she hadn't expected to be pushed into the spotlight. A man who had been joking around all evening noticed her standing near the piano. He was known among the friends for his playful pranks and teasing nature. He smirked and nudged her lightly, pretending to be casual. "Hey, can you play something for us? Just a small piece, nothing fancy," he said. His tone was teasing, but there was a hint of challenge in his eyes. She smiled politely, hoping he would drop it, but he didn't. He leaned closer, his voice playful but insistent. "Come on, I want to see if you're really as good as everyone says. Or maybe you're just all talk." The people around them chuckled, waiting to see her reaction, enjoying the idea of a small, funny moment. For a moment, she hesitated. She didn't mind sharing her music, but the way he said it, it felt like a test, like he expected her to fail. She glanced around at the group, some smiling encouragingly, others waiting for the joke to unfold. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll play." Her heart raced, not with fear of performing, but with the strange mix of surprise and tension that comes when you're caught off guard. She walked to the piano, each step measured, aware of the eyes on her. The room had quieted, the casual chatter fading into anticipation. He sat back, leaning in a bit, clearly amused at the idea of this small prank turning into something entertaining for him. She positioned herself on the bench, her fingers hovering over the keys for a moment, feeling the smooth surface beneath her fingertips. It was familiar, comforting, yet tonight it felt different. Tonight, the piano was not just an instrument. It was a stage. She started slowly, pressing the keys lightly at first. The sound filled the room, soft and tentative, as if testing the waters. Some friends whispered to each other, remarking on how delicate and careful her playing was. He smirked, leaning back with crossed arms, expecting the performance to be awkward, expecting to laugh any second. But what came next surprised everyone. The music began to flow more freely, notes intertwining with each other beautifully, as if they were telling a story. Her fingers moved with confidence now, creating a melody that captured everyone's attention. The laughter and whispers died down, replaced by a focused silence. No one moved. No one dared interrupt. It was as if the room itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Even though she was playing beautifully, there was a strange tension in her chest. She hadn't realized how tightly she had been holding herself, how fast her heart had been beating. The prank, the teasing, the sudden pressure to perform. It all mixed together, making her feel a bit dizzy. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself while keeping her focus on the music. The man who had dared her to play leaned forward slightly, still smiling, but now there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. This wasn't going the way he expected. Instead of fumbling or hesitating, she was creating something mesmerizing. Others around them exchanged glances, some shocked, some silently impressed, all captivated by the unexpected talent being revealed in front of them. Her hands moved across the keys with precision, but she noticed a strange tightness building in her chest. She ignored it at first, focusing on the melody, hoping it would pass. The room seemed to fade away. The only thing that existed was the music, the keys, and the eyes watching her intently. The notes resonated through the air, carrying with them an emotion that went beyond the casual gathering. A mix of surprise, awe, and wonder. No one could believe the sudden transformation from a casual moment into something so profound. The prank that had started as a joke was dissolving into something far more serious and unexpected. The woman continued to play, unaware of the effect she was having on everyone around her. Each note was deliberate, yet flowed naturally, creating a harmony that seemed impossible for someone who had just been caught off guard. The tension in the room was palpable. The man who had initiated the prank now realized that he had underestimated her. His eyes widened slightly as he noticed the skill, the emotion, and the intensity she was bringing to the performance. The audience, once ready to laugh, was now completely absorbed, silent except for the sound of the piano. There was a feeling that something extraordinary was happening, something that no one had expected, and everyone felt it. Even as she played, the tightness in her chest grew, a reminder of the unexpected pressure she was under. She tried to ignore it, concentrating on the music, letting her hands guide the melody. She could feel the collective gaze on her, the energy of the room shifting from amusement to amazement. The prank that had been meant to make her stumble had inadvertently created a moment of pure magic. Minutes felt like seconds as she continued to play, lost in the music, lost in the challenge, and yet deeply connected to the people watching her. Every note seemed to reach out, touching each person differently. Some felt inspired, some felt emotional, and some were simply stunned at the talent displayed. The atmosphere had changed completely, from casual laughter to quiet admiration. She paused for a brief moment, her fingers hovering above the keys, catching her breath. The room remained silent, the anticipation almost tangible. Even he, the one who had dared her to play, looked uncertain now. He had expected a joke, a funny failure, but what he saw instead was something beyond his imagination. He could no longer see this as a prank. It was real, it was powerful, and it was happening right before his eyes. She smiled softly, a little nervous, but determined to continue. The tightness in her chest reminded her that she was human, that even talent and skill can be challenged by unexpected circumstances. But she let the music guide her, letting the melody grow, evolve, and fill the room completely. The prank had become irrelevant. All that mattered now was the music and the story it was telling. By the time she finished the first few phrases, the audience was completely captivated. The room had transformed. The casual gathering now felt like a concert hall, filled with emotion and intensity. She had taken a moment that was supposed to be a joke and turned it into something unforgettable. And though she was unaware, the story had just begun. The real challenge and the unexpected twist were about to unfold, just 10 seconds away from changing everything again. The music continued to fill the room, soft at first, then growing stronger with every passing second. People had stopped their conversations entirely. Eyes were fixed on the young woman at the piano, curious and amazed at what they were hearing. She had started with simple notes, but now her fingers moved with skill and confidence. Each key pressed carefully to create a flowing, emotional melody. Even those who didn't know much about music could feel the beauty in her performance. It wasn't just notes on a page. It was a story being told without words. The man who had playfully pushed her to perform watched with a mixture of shock and fascination. He had thought this would be funny, that she might stumble or make a mistake, and he could laugh along with the rest. But instead, he found himself unable to look away. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hands, as he realized that the prank he had planned was no longer a joke. It was something much more serious, much more impressive, and he didn't know how to react. The audience began to notice small details. Her hands moved gracefully, yet with strength and precision. Her eyes were focused, but her face showed a touch of nervousness, a hint that she was aware of how many people were watching. The room was silent except for the piano's melody, but the energy was almost tangible. Every person felt it differently. Some were amazed at her talent, some inspired, and some held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The music seemed to pull her deeper into its rhythm, her fingers moving faster now, yet without losing accuracy. Each note seemed to flow naturally into the next, as if her hands had a life of their own. She could feel the eyes on her, but she tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the sound and the story she wanted to tell. For a moment, she forgot about the prank, the man who had dared her, and even the audience. It was just her and the piano, and the world around her disappeared. But then, a strange sensation began to creep into her chest. At first, it was small, almost unnoticeable. She took a deep breath, thinking it would pass. But it didn't. The tightness spread slightly, making her aware of every breath she took. She tried to push it aside, to keep her focus on the music, but the feeling lingered, a gentle warning that something was not quite right. She didn't want to stop. She didn't want to break the spell she had created with her playing. Yet, the physical pressure in her chest was growing, and she could no longer ignore it. Around the room, people started to shift in their seats, sensing a change. The performance had been captivating, but now there was a subtle tension, a sense that something might be happening beyond just the music. Friends whispered to each other, unsure if the young woman was simply nervous or if something more serious was going on. But no one interrupted. No one wanted to break the moment, and everyone was still completely captivated by her talent. The man who had planned the prank finally looked concerned. The smirk on his face had faded, replaced by worry. He could see the subtle signs, her shoulders tensing, her breathing slightly uneven, a hint of panic in her eyes. The prank had gone far beyond his expectations, and now he wondered if it had gone too far. He wanted to call out, to ask if she was okay, but he hesitated, not wanting to ruin the music that had enchanted everyone. Her fingers continued to move, producing a melody that seemed to fill every corner of the room. She tried to take deep, even breaths, but the tightness in her chest made it difficult. She could feel her heart racing, not from fear of performing, but from the sudden physical stress she was experiencing. She paused for a split second, her hands hovering above the keys, and a faint gasp escaped her lips. That tiny moment made the audience notice something was wrong. They leaned forward slightly, watching her carefully, their amazement now mixed with concern. Despite the growing difficulty, she refused to stop. She was determined to finish the piece, to maintain the story she had begun with her music. Her focus sharpened, and she let the melody guide her, trusting her fingers to continue even as her chest felt tight. Each note became an act of determination, a small victory over the discomfort that was slowly creeping in. It was a delicate balance, the beauty of the music and the strain she was feeling within her body. The audience could sense the change. The room felt heavier, filled with a mixture of awe and worry. No one spoke, but their attention was fully on her. It was not just a performance now, it was a moment of human strength and courage. Every person present could feel the tension, the vulnerability, and the raw talent coming together in a way that made it impossible to look away. The man who had planned the prank finally moved, standing up from his seat. He didn't say anything at first, just watching carefully, his smile gone. He realized he had underestimated her entirely. The prank that had seemed harmless now seemed reckless in comparison to what was unfolding. He wanted to step forward, to offer help, but he was also captivated by the music, torn between concern and awe. She took a slow, careful breath, trying to steady herself. Her hands continued to move over the keys, but each note required more effort. She could feel the strain in her chest, the increasing pressure in her lungs, and the faint dizziness from holding herself together. Yet, she didn't falter. She played with grace and determination, her fingers dancing across the keys despite the discomfort. Every note seemed to echo her inner strength, her desire to continue despite the growing difficulty. The audience remained silent, but their hearts were racing. The performance that had begun as a simple response to a prank was now something unforgettable. They watched, knowing that this was not just about talent. It was about courage, focus, and human resilience. The room was filled with a mix of admiration and worry, creating a unique energy that no one present would ever forget. Minutes passed, though it felt like only moments. She continued to play, feeling the tightness in her chest grow stronger. Her breaths became shorter, but she pushed through, determined to finish the melody she had started. The music had become a lifeline, a way to maintain control, a way to tell her story even as her body protested. Each note was a reminder that she could endure, that she could turn a challenging situation into something beautiful. The man who had initiated the prank could no longer hide his concern. He moved closer, speaking softly, asking if she was all right. She shook her head slightly, indicating that she needed to finish the piece first. Her dedication to the music was evident, and the man realized that the prank had unintentionally revealed something extraordinary. She wasn't just talented. She was determined, resilient, and capable of facing a challenge head-on, even when it became unexpectedly difficult. The room remained captivated, filled with silence except for the piano's melody. The performance was no longer about entertainment or amusement. It had become a lesson in human strength and artistry. The young woman at the piano was showing everyone what it meant to persevere, to continue despite obstacles, and to find beauty in the midst of challenge. Every person present could feel the impact of her courage, and they knew they were witnessing something special. She continued, each note carefully placed, each phrase played with intention. The music seemed to take on a life of its own, carrying the emotions of the moment to everyone in the room. Her body was under strain, but her spirit remained strong, and that strength resonated through the melody. The prank had started as a joke, but it had transformed into an unforgettable display of talent, focus, and determination. As the part of the melody came to an end, she finally allowed herself a brief pause. Her fingers hovered over the keys, her chest tight and her breath short, but she smiled faintly. The audience felt a mixture of relief and admiration, realizing the effort it had taken to reach this point. They had been expecting a casual performance, a moment of light entertainment, and instead they had witnessed courage and skill intertwined in a way that would stay with them forever. The man who had dared her to play looked on, humbled and impressed. He had learned a powerful lesson about underestimating others and about the unpredictable consequences of a prank. What had begun as a joke had revealed something far greater: the talent, resilience, and determination of a young woman who refused to let a challenge, or a prank, define her limits. The music faded slightly as she took another careful breath, preparing for the next part of the piece. The audience waited in silence, fully aware that something extraordinary was happening. The room was no longer just a living space filled with casual conversation. It had become a stage, a moment in time that captured the essence of human strength and artistic beauty. And as she continued, the story was far from over. The unexpected twist that would challenge her even more was just around the corner. The melody continued to flow through the room, delicate and strong at the same time. Every note seemed to carry not only her skill but her emotions, creating a connection with everyone present. People remained completely still, caught in a moment that felt larger than the casual gathering it really was. Their eyes followed her hands as they moved effortlessly across the keys. The sound was mesmerizing, as though each note was telling a story that words could never express. What had begun as a simple prank now felt like a performance meant to be remembered for a lifetime. She had been playing for what felt like minutes, though it was impossible to know the exact time. Her body had started sending signals she could no longer ignore. A tightness had begun in her chest, spreading gradually. It wasn't just nervousness anymore. It was a deeper, more physical sensation that made every breath a little harder. She tried to ignore it, hoping it would pass, but the tightness intensified quickly. She pressed on, her fingers still moving, though now each note demanded more effort than before. The people watching her began to notice a change. The initial awe in their eyes was now mixed with concern. Some leaned forward slightly, whispering to one another, unsure whether she was struggling or simply fully immersed in her music. The man who had initiated the prank was frozen, his previous amusement replaced by alarm. He could see her chest rising and falling rapidly, her breaths coming shorter than before. His playful attitude had disappeared entirely, replaced with worry and guilt. She paused briefly, one hand hovering above the keys, taking a shallow breath. Her chest felt tight, and a faint dizziness threatened to overtake her. She wanted to tell someone, to stop, but something inside her urged her to continue. She didn't want the moment, or the story she was telling through music, to end prematurely. It was a battle between the beauty of the music and the limitations of her body. The audience could feel it. A subtle shift had occurred. The room was no longer just filled with sound. It was filled with tension and anticipation. Every person present realized that the young woman at the piano was struggling in a way that went beyond mere nerves. Her focus and determination were evident, but so was her vulnerability. It was a moment of raw humanity, and it had everyone's attention completely. The man who had dared her to play stepped closer, unsure what to do. He whispered softly, asking if she was okay, but she only shook her head slightly, indicating she wanted to finish the piece. Her face showed determination mixed with discomfort, her brows slightly furrowed as she fought against the growing pressure in her chest. It was clear now that the prank had gone too far, that this was no longer a lighthearted moment. Yet she was unwilling to let it end. She let the music carry her forward, relying on the rhythm to distract from the physical strain she felt. As the melody built, so did the intensity of her struggle. Her chest felt tighter with each passing second, making it harder to breathe and forcing her to pause ever so slightly between phrases. Despite this, her fingers continued to move with surprising precision. The notes were deliberate, emotional, and captivating. Each phrase was a testament to her courage, showing that talent alone could not define a person, but determination could. The audience was now fully aware of what was happening. The initial amusement from the prank had vanished, replaced by a mixture of concern, admiration, and awe. They were witnessing something that went far beyond a simple musical performance. It was a human moment, raw and unfiltered, where talent and vulnerability intersected in a way that touched everyone in the room. Some were holding their breath, unsure whether to applaud, intervene, or simply watch. The energy in the room was heavy, almost electric, as if time itself had slowed down. She took another careful breath, trying to steady herself, but the tightness in her chest made it difficult. The dizziness was creeping in, and a sense of panic threatened to take over. She wanted to stop, to release herself from the pressure, but she didn't. Her eyes remained fixed on the keys, her fingers continuing to dance across them. Every note was a struggle and a triumph at the same time, a display of human resilience that no one could ignore. The man who had set the prank in motion was now fully panicked. He had laughed moments before, expecting a harmless joke, but now the reality of the situation had hit him. His hands shook slightly as he considered rushing to help her, but he feared interrupting the performance and breaking the moment. He could see the determination in her eyes and the strain on her body, and he realized that this was no longer about a prank. It was about respect, care, and understanding the limits of someone's strength. Other people in the room began to react as well. Some slowly stood, unsure whether to step closer or remain where they were. Some whispered words of encouragement, hoping she could hear them. Everyone's attention was focused entirely on her, and the atmosphere had shifted completely from casual to intense. The music, the struggle, and the courage had merged into a single experience that left no one unaffected. She continued, each note a mixture of precision and emotion. She had become lost in the music, almost detached from the physical discomfort, though she was painfully aware of it. Her mind focused on the rhythm, the melody, the story she wanted to tell. It was a fight for control over the music, over her body, and over the moment that had unexpectedly become so important. The tightness in her chest grew stronger, making her pauses between phrases longer. The audience could now clearly see that she was struggling to breathe. A few people exchanged worried glances, unsure if they should intervene. The man who had initiated the prank finally moved closer, his voice gentle and urgent as he asked again if she was okay. She shook her head slightly, still determined to continue, though her face betrayed the effort it took to maintain her composure. Every note she played now carried a weight beyond music. It was a statement of courage, determination, and human resilience. The audience felt it deeply, some with admiration, some with concern, all with a profound respect for what they were witnessing. The room was silent except for the piano, yet it was filled with unspoken emotions: awe, fear, empathy, and wonder. The performance had become a testament to the strength of the human spirit, even in the face of unexpected challenges. Her fingers moved across the keys with care, each note deliberate, but the physical strain was unmistakable. Her breaths were shallow, her chest tight, but she refused to stop. The music was more than a melody now. It was a lifeline, a connection between her determination and the audience's admiration. Each phrase was a victory over the discomfort she felt, a display of how focus and talent could push someone beyond ordinary limits. Minutes seemed like an eternity as she continued. The room was entirely captivated, watching a young woman defy expectation and physical strain, all while creating something truly extraordinary. The man who had played the prank could no longer smile or joke. He had been a part of the moment, but now he was simply a witness, humbled and concerned. He realized that a single act meant to amuse could unexpectedly reveal the strength and courage of someone else. Finally, she paused briefly, her hands hovering above the keys, taking a quick, careful breath. The audience held theirs in response. Every person in the room understood that this was a fragile moment, one that could change at any second. The prank had completely dissolved, replaced by a story of human determination and the power of art. They watched, aware that they were part of something unforgettable, a story that would be remembered for years to come. She resumed, though each note was more effort than before. Her chest ached, her breathing was uneven, but the melody continued. It carried the story she had started, a story of talent, resilience, and the unexpected strength one can find when pushed beyond comfort. The audience was entranced, completely absorbed in the moment, unable to look away. The prank had started as a light joke, but it had become a testament to the beauty of human courage, the fragility of the body, and the power of determination in the face of challenge. And as the music flowed on, the tension in the room grew. Everyone could feel that the story was far from over. The next moment, the twist that would test her even more, was about to arrive, and no one could predict how it would unfold. The room was silent, hearts beating in unison with the piano, fully present for whatever would come next. The melody that had once flowed effortlessly now wavered slightly, not because of a lack of skill, but because of the growing difficulty she faced in her own body. The tightness in her chest was now undeniable, pressing down with each breath, making it harder to continue. She could feel panic creeping in, but she fought it, focusing on the piano keys in front of her. Every note required more effort than the last, but she was determined to maintain the story she had started through music. The audience could sense the change immediately. There was a shift in the room, an unspoken tension that made every person lean forward slightly, watching with concern and fascination. The man who had initiated the prank looked alarmed, guilt now replacing the amusement he had once felt. He could see that what had begun as a joke had turned into something serious, something that might affect her health if she didn't get help soon. She continued to play, but each note now felt heavy. Her fingers moved more slowly, her eyes occasionally glancing up at the audience to check for reactions. Everyone could see that the music was no longer just a performance. It was a struggle, a display of determination under pressure. Some people exchanged worried whispers, while others sat frozen, unsure of how to help without breaking the moment she had worked so hard to maintain. The tightness in her chest made her pause briefly between phrases. She pressed a hand to her side, taking a shallow breath, and the audience collectively held theirs. The man who had dared her to play stepped closer, his voice gentle, asking if she was all right. She shook her head faintly, indicating that she wanted to continue. Her eyes showed determination, but also the strain she was experiencing. It was clear that she was fighting against more than just the complexity of the music. She was fighting her own body. A few friends who had been standing nearby moved slightly, ready to step in if necessary, but they remained respectful, waiting for any signal that she needed immediate help. The room was silent except for the piano, each note now carrying the weight of her struggle as well as her talent. It was a moment that combined beauty and vulnerability in a way that left the entire audience breathless. She tried to focus on the music, letting the rhythm guide her hands, but her breaths were becoming shorter and more frequent. Her chest felt tight, almost as if someone were pressing down on it. Panic threatened to rise, but she forced herself to remain composed, taking a momentary pause to steady her breath. The melody continued, albeit slower and with more care, as she balanced between her talent and the physical challenge she faced. The man who had started the prank now realized how serious the situation had become. His playful demeanor had completely vanished, replaced with worry and a strong desire to help. He leaned slightly closer, trying to offer support without interrupting the music. The audience was fully aware of her struggle, yet no one wanted to break the performance prematurely. Everyone understood that this was a delicate balance, a moment that required both courage and care. She pressed on, each note a triumph over the tightness in her chest. Her fingers moved with effort, yet there was still a grace and precision that amazed everyone watching. The struggle was evident, but so was her determination. Each phrase she played seemed to tell the story of a person facing an unexpected challenge and refusing to give up. The music had transformed from simple notes into a narrative of resilience, strength, and courage. The tension in the room grew. People were leaning forward, watching her carefully, some with hands clasped in concern. The man who had dared her to play was visibly shaken, realizing that the prank had unintentionally placed her in a situation that could have been dangerous. He wanted to step forward, to make sure she was okay, but he was also captivated by her strength and the beauty of the music she continued to produce despite her struggle. She paused again, her hand hovering over the keys, taking a shallow breath. The tightness in her chest made it hard to continue, but she refused to stop. Her eyes were determined, showing that even though her body was struggling, her mind and spirit were still fully engaged. The audience felt the intensity of the moment, their admiration for her growing as they witnessed her courage. The piano notes carried a weight beyond the music itself. They were a reflection of her determination, a silent message to everyone watching that strength can emerge in unexpected situations. Her breathing was uneven, her chest tight, and her body strained, but she persisted. Every phrase, every note, became a testament to human resilience, showing how focus and determination can overcome even sudden challenges. People in the room were whispering now, some suggesting softly that she take a moment, others silently cheering her on. The man who had intended the prank was now fully focused on her well-being, his earlier amusement replaced with genuine concern. He realized that the prank had unintentionally revealed not only her talent, but also her extraordinary ability to face unexpected difficulties with courage. She pressed on, letting the music guide her fingers, even as the tightness in her chest became more pronounced. Her breaths were short, and a faint dizziness threatened to take over, but she refused to let it stop her. The audience watched in awe, feeling the weight of her struggle intertwined with the beauty of the music. Every note played was a small victory, a defiance of the limitations imposed by her sudden physical challenge. The atmosphere in the room had shifted completely. What had begun as a playful gathering with a harmless prank had turned into a moment of human strength, vulnerability, and artistic brilliance. People were captivated, their emotions engaged in ways they had not anticipated. Admiration, concern, and awe filled the space, creating a shared experience that no one present would ever forget. She continued to play, each note a delicate balance between her skill and her physical strain. Her fingers moved carefully, her eyes focused on the keys, and her chest tightness reminded her of the effort required to maintain control. She had transformed a moment that could have been embarrassing or lighthearted into a story of determination, resilience, and the unexpected power of human courage. The man who had dared her to play finally stepped forward, offering quiet support and encouragement. His voice was calm, trying to reassure her without breaking the flow of the music. She nodded slightly, grateful for the understanding and concern, but she was determined to continue. The audience remained silent, fully aware that they were witnessing something extraordinary. A young woman turning a prank into a display of immense courage and talent. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. She pressed on, refusing to let the tightness in her chest dominate her performance. Each note was deliberate, every phrase a struggle and a triumph combined. The audience was completely absorbed, their attention unwavering, as they watched her navigate the challenge with grace, determination, and unwavering focus. The prank had become irrelevant, replaced by a profound moment of human resilience. Finally, she reached a brief pause, her hands hovering over the keys, taking a shallow, careful breath. The audience held theirs in response. The man who had dared her to play stood close, ready to intervene if necessary. He could see the strain and the courage, the vulnerability and the strength, all in a single person. The room had transformed from casual entertainment into a stage of human emotion and artistic brilliance. The next moment was uncertain. Everyone could feel it. The twist, the moment that could change everything, was approaching. The music had carried them this far, but the challenge that awaited would test her limits even more. The room was silent, the tension palpable, hearts beating in unison with the piano, waiting for what would happen next. The story was far from over, and every person present understood that they were witnessing something unforgettable, a moment that would remain in their memories forever. The tightness in her chest had reached a point where each breath felt like a small struggle. Despite the discomfort, she continued to play, her fingers moving over the keys with care and precision. Every note carried not just the melody, but the determination and courage that had grown in her throughout the performance. The room was completely silent, every eye fixed on her, every heart beating with a mix of admiration and concern. What had begun as a playful prank had become a powerful demonstration of resilience and focus. The man who had encouraged her to play was now fully aware of the seriousness of the situation. His initial laughter and teasing had vanished, replaced by worry and guilt. He leaned closer, speaking softly, asking if she was all right, but she only shook her head faintly, signaling that she needed a moment. He nodded, understanding, and took a small step back to give her space, while still staying close enough to intervene if necessary. Friends and acquaintances in the room began to shift uneasily. Some whispered to one another, unsure whether they should step forward or remain in place. Every person present was caught between the beauty of her playing and the concern for her well-being. The music continued to flow, but there was a new depth to it, a mixture of emotion and human struggle that made the performance even more captivating. The melody was no longer just notes. It was a story of endurance and courage. She pressed on, each note a careful balance between her talent and the challenge her body was presenting. Her chest felt tight, her breath short, yet she refused to give in. The room seemed to respond to her determination, as if the audience itself were holding its collective breath, supporting her in an unspoken way. The man who had started the prank stood silently, humbled, realizing that what he had intended as a joke had turned into an unforgettable moment of human strength. As the music reached a more complex section, her breathing became more labored. A slight dizziness appeared, and she had to pause briefly, one hand hovering above the keys. The audience felt the tension, leaning forward with concern. Someone gently suggested that she take a short break, but she shook her head, indicating she wanted to finish the piece. Her eyes reflected both pain and determination, showing that despite the struggle, her commitment to the music remained unbroken. A few people quietly moved closer, ready to help if necessary, but careful not to interrupt the performance. They could see the tightness in her chest, the shortness of breath, and the faint strain in her movements. Despite this, her fingers continued to play, producing a melody that was even more emotional and powerful than before. The audience was captivated, drawn not only to her talent, but also to the raw courage she displayed in facing this unexpected challenge. The man who had dared her to play now realized how close she had come to a physical limit. He wanted to intervene, to ensure her safety, but he also understood that this was a delicate moment. She had transformed a simple prank into a display of extraordinary resilience, and interrupting her could take away from the power of that display. He stayed close, his presence a silent support, ready to act if she signaled that she could no longer continue. Her breaths were shallow, her chest tight, and yet she continued to play. Each note was deliberate, filled with emotion and focus. The music had become a lifeline, a way to channel her determination and distract from the physical strain. Every person in the room felt the intensity of the moment, their admiration growing with each passing phrase. What had begun as light-hearted fun had become a shared experience of human courage and perseverance. She paused briefly, taking the shallowest of breaths, her hand still hovering over the keys. The audience remained silent, fully aware that this was a fragile moment. The man who had instigated the prank leaned forward slightly, asking if she was okay. She nodded faintly, her determination evident in her eyes. The tension in the room was palpable, as everyone recognized the effort she was making to continue despite the difficulty. As she resumed playing, the melody carried even more emotion. Each note seemed to resonate not only through the room but through every person present. The audience could feel her struggle, her determination, and her skill all at once. The music had become a bridge between her and the people watching, a silent connection that transcended words. It was a moment of shared human experience, one that would stay in everyone's memory long after it ended. The man who had planned the prank was now fully focused on her well-being. He had learned a valuable lesson about the consequences of playful challenges and the strength of others. He remained close, quietly offering support, ready to step in if the situation worsened. The other audience members were also attentive, some offering gentle encouragement, others simply watching in silent admiration. Her fingers moved across the keys with precision, but each movement required more effort than the last. The tightness in her chest made breathing difficult, and a faint dizziness was present. Yet she continued. The music had become more than a performance. It was a test of endurance, a story of determination, and a demonstration of human strength. The audience felt every note, every struggle, and every triumph, fully absorbed in the unfolding moment. She paused briefly again, taking a careful, shallow breath. The man who had instigated the prank moved slightly closer, offering a reassuring presence. The audience remained silent, understanding the gravity of the moment. Each person in the room recognized the courage it took for her to continue, and their respect and admiration grew. The music was no longer just a melody. It was a narrative of resilience, vulnerability, and human spirit. With determination, she resumed playing, the melody flowing once more. Each note was deliberate, each phrase carefully crafted, yet infused with the struggle she was experiencing. Her breathing remained difficult, her chest tight, but she refused to stop. The audience could feel the effort in every note, the courage in every phrase. The room was filled with a shared experience, a connection between the performer and the listeners that transcended the original prank. Minutes passed, and the tension in the room remained. She continued to play, each note a triumph over the physical limitations she faced. The audience remained captivated, unable to look away, fully engaged in the human story unfolding before them. The man who had initiated the prank stood silently, humbled and concerned, understanding the power of what he had witnessed. The music had transformed from a playful performance into a profound moment of human resilience and artistry. Finally, she reached a point where she could pause briefly, her hands hovering above the keys, catching her breath as best she could. The audience held theirs in response, fully aware of the significance of the moment. The man who had started the prank moved even closer, ready to assist if needed. The room was filled with silent admiration, concern, and awe. The prank had completely faded from memory, replaced by a story of courage, determination, and the unexpected strength of a human being. As she prepared to continue, the audience knew that the final moments of the performance would be a culmination of talent, endurance, and resilience. The room was tense, hearts beating in unison with the melody, waiting to see how the story would conclude. The music had become a symbol of perseverance, a testament to human spirit, and a reminder that even in challenging situations, strength and determination can shine through. The audience remained silent, fully present for the resolution that was about to unfold, knowing that they had witnessed something extraordinary. The final notes of the melody lingered in the room, filling every corner with a sound that was both delicate and powerful. She slowly lowered her hands from the keys, letting the music fade naturally. A soft silence followed, broken only by the faint sound of her breathing. Her chest was still tight, and each inhale was careful, but she had completed the performance. The audience remained motionless for a few moments, processing what they had just witnessed. The prank that had started as a joke had transformed into an unforgettable display of talent, courage, and human resilience. The man who had encouraged her to play stepped forward immediately, his face filled with concern. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, checking if she was okay. She nodded faintly, giving a small smile that showed both relief and pride. The tension that had gripped the room for the last several minutes began to lift, replaced by admiration and quiet applause. People began to murmur to one another, expressing amazement at how she had managed to play so beautifully despite the struggle she had faced. Friends moved closer, offering quiet words of support and encouragement. Some brought her water, while others helped her sit down comfortably. She accepted their care graciously, still a little shaken but overwhelmingly proud that she had managed to finish the piece. The experience had been intense, challenging her both physically and emotionally, but it had also revealed the depth of her strength and focus. The audience's reactions were a testament to the impact she had made on everyone present. The man who had instigated the prank now looked genuinely humbled. He had intended a playful moment, never imagining it would evolve into such a profound experience. He apologized quietly, his voice sincere, recognizing the seriousness of the situation. She accepted the apology with a gentle nod, understanding that no harm had been intended and appreciating that he had stayed close to offer support when it became clear that it was needed. The experience had changed the atmosphere in the room, turning a light-hearted prank into a lesson about respect, empathy, and understanding the limits of others. As she caught her breath, the audience slowly began to clap. The applause was not loud or exaggerated. It was heartfelt and filled with admiration. Every person in the room recognized the courage it had taken to continue playing despite the physical strain and the unexpected challenge. The performance had become more than just a display of talent. It was a story of perseverance, determination, and the strength of the human spirit. People whispered to one another, marveling at how a simple prank had uncovered such extraordinary qualities. The room was filled with a sense of shared experience. The audience had not only witnessed her musical talent, but had also been part of a moment that highlighted human vulnerability and resilience. Some people expressed that they had never seen anything like it before, describing the performance as moving, inspiring, and unforgettable. The music, combined with her courage, had created an emotional connection between the performer and the audience that went beyond words. She smiled softly, acknowledging the applause, but more importantly, she felt a sense of personal triumph. Completing the piece under such unexpected and difficult circumstances had been a true test of her determination. The experience had reminded her of her own strength and her ability to face challenges, even when they come suddenly and without warning. She realized that the music had not only conveyed her talent, but also her resilience, leaving a lasting impression on everyone present. The man who had initiated the prank spoke to the audience quietly, sharing a few words about what had just happened. He explained that the performance had started as a playful challenge, but it had become something far greater. The crowd nodded and murmured in agreement, acknowledging the unexpected depth of the experience. His tone was respectful and admiring, showing that he had learned an important lesson about underestimating others and understanding the impact of his actions. Some of the audience members approached her, offering compliments and words of encouragement. They expressed amazement at how she had handled the situation, both technically and emotionally. Her talent had shined through, but so had her bravery and composure. People spoke about the rare combination of skill and courage that they had witnessed, emphasizing how the experience had moved them deeply. It was clear that this moment would remain in their memories for a long time. She thanked everyone quietly, appreciating their support and recognition. Despite the physical strain she had endured, she felt an immense sense of accomplishment. The prank had inadvertently created a situation that allowed her to showcase not only her musical ability, but also her inner strength. The experience had reinforced the idea that challenges can sometimes reveal unexpected qualities, both in oneself and in others. She had transformed a potentially embarrassing situation into a memorable and inspiring moment. The man who had dared her to play stayed nearby, observing the interactions between her and the audience. He saw the admiration and respect she had earned and felt a mix of pride and humility. He realized that what had begun as a joke had inadvertently allowed him and everyone else present to witness something extraordinary. The experience was a reminder that talent, courage, and determination can surface in unexpected ways, and that even a simple prank can lead to profound insights about human resilience. The room slowly began to return to its normal atmosphere, though the memory of the performance lingered. Conversations resumed, but the tone was different now, filled with respect and appreciation rather than casual amusement. People continued to speak about the courage and talent they had witnessed, reflecting on how an unexpected challenge had brought out the best in someone. The young woman at the piano, still catching her breath, quietly listened to the conversations, feeling a deep sense of connection with everyone in the room. As the evening continued, the story of what had just happened spread among the guests. They recounted the performance with a mix of awe and admiration, emphasizing how a simple prank had turned into a moment of human brilliance. People spoke about the courage it took to continue despite physical strain, and how the music had conveyed emotions that words could not. The experience had created a shared memory that would be retold for years, a testament to talent, determination, and the human spirit. She reflected on the events quietly, understanding the lessons that had emerged. The prank, though intended for amusement, had led to a situation where she could demonstrate not only her musical skill, but also her resilience. She realized that moments of challenge can reveal unexpected strengths, both to oneself and to those around. The experience reinforced the importance of determination, focus, and the ability to remain calm under pressure, lessons that would stay with her for a lifetime. The man who had initiated the prank approached her once more, offering a sincere thank you. He expressed that he had learned an important lesson about respect, empathy, and the power of human resilience. She nodded, acknowledging his words, and they shared a quiet moment of understanding. The prank had started as a lighthearted joke, but it had become a life lesson for everyone involved, highlighting the unexpected ways in which challenges can teach and inspire. As the evening drew to a close, people slowly began to leave, each person taking with them the memory of a remarkable performance. The story of her courage, skill, and determination spread among those who had witnessed it, leaving a lasting impression. The music, the struggle, and the triumph had created a moment that transcended a simple gathering, turning it into an unforgettable experience. In the end, the prank that had seemed trivial became the catalyst for something extraordinary. It revealed the young woman's inner strength, her ability to face unexpected challenges, and the beauty of perseverance. The audience had witnessed not just a musical performance, but a display of human courage and resilience that would be remembered for years. The experience served as a reminder that talent and determination, when combined with bravery, can transform any situation into a story worth telling.